So you are saying it appears that this bill was advertised to Florida Republicans in a way that may have been deceptive. So they signed off on it not knowing that it removes oversight on election technology.
There's deception, and then there's omission. And there are people that are overworked and understaffed. And you got citizens that are not paying attention. So if you put all those things together, what ends up happening is the groups like the Florida Supervisor of Election, this is a trade union that has powerful lobbyists. That special interest group bent the ear of our legislators, told them the talking points that are in blue, did not dwell on the talking points that are in red, and the legislators just went along.
Well, the last week in April, the Florida Senate passed a wide-ranging election integrity bill, part of which involved Governor Ron DeSantis not having to resign from office to run for president if he chooses to do so. Raj Dorsami is joining me from Defend the Union. You spoke with me before the midterms and Defend the Midterms. You were doing a big push for educating voters on how to protect election integrity. What's your take on this new Senate Bill 7050 in Florida?
Yeah, thank you, Ivory. I so appreciate it. And thank you for the people that are watching Ivory's program. I'll get right to it. So you already hit on some of the things that are in this bill. This bill, Senate Bill 7050, changes the laws in Florida. And why, even if you're not living in Florida, this is pertinent to you, is what I'm going to share with you and Ivory in the next few minutes is likely already happening in your state. You just may not know that it's happening, because that was definitely the case with us until the first week of April, when we found out about these radical change, the dramatic changes. So first, you mentioned one of the things that this bill allows our governor to run for presidential office or federal office without having to resign. You know what? Most of the people that I'm working with are completely fine and supportive of that. If anyone in America wants to run for office, presidential office, they need to do that. So that is not an issue for the people that at least I am working with. However, there are some things in this bill that really need your attention, because again, if you're in Florida, this is going to be important. And if you're not in Florida, again, this is likely happening in your location. So Ivory, is it all right if I kind of share my screen and maybe?
Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome.
Here it is.
Awesome. Great. So here, there are three things that we're going to be covering in the next few minutes in this conversation here. And first is going to be some of the good things. And then we're also going to talk about what the bill did not address. These are issues from before the bill occurred. And the red things are the most toxic things. And that is really why I requested Ivory to give me a few minutes to talk with you about this. Now, as I'm going through this, you might be in one of three categories. You might be someone who understands how legislation works and you're familiar with this process. When I say bill, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Or you may be like, okay, I'm not exactly sure what all that means, Raj. So I want you to know that you have an opportunity, if you'd like, to get some free training on what I'm about to share with you. And why this is so important is because you, my friends, in your state need to be prepared to engage with these topics in your location, even though you may not have done that before. So you can see right here some training here, how to prepare for an effective meeting. All this is free. How to win with your officials, how to persuade them, how to plan your trip, how to reduce the drama. So please take advantage of that, because this is going to be a very, very important. And if you want even more training, you can click this button here to get more training. But let's get started right into this. So the good things, let's talk about that first, because a lot of groups had worked with our legislation for months. And included in the good things, these are not all of them, but these are some of the highlights, is there's now, because of this bill, more training available to our officials. Number two, if people, you were going to say something? Sorry.
Nope, go on.
Okay, good. Number two, there are severe penalties. If people break the law, the penalties of breaking the law are increased. That's good too. And there's some collaboration between agencies within the state of Florida. These are all good things. The things that this bill did not fix, to be clear, the purple area here, this isn't an area that's the bill made worse or better. It just didn't address it, or didn't address it sufficiently. So number one, vote by mail. You can still, after this bill is passed, you can still use your homeowners association ID, for example, to apply to vote by mail, to apply to register to vote. There's still gaps. If a non-US citizen is on the voter rolls in Florida, if they're already on the voter rolls, they can continue to vote. There isn't anything in this bill to fix that.
Wow.
And as I mentioned earlier, the process to register to vote is still quite porous. So that's a purple area. So I remember I said three things. The third thing, which is most egregious, is this bill, because the legislators appear to have listened to special interest groups instead of listening to the citizens of Florida, this bill actually creates barriers for citizen participation. Incredible that this would happen in the free state of Florida, but I will actually give you a little bit more detail on that. And secondly, another example is we have election technology. Most states do. In our state, our law requires oversight, reviewing that technology by our legislators. Hey, is this technology still good? Do we want to keep it confidential? Do we want to allow it to be declassified and made available for public to look at? That review process was removed. Crazy, crazy stuff here. So it's a
Wow.
lot there, Ivory. Can I go into some more detail on some of these things, Ivory?
Sure, but a quick question. I looked at the local news there and they were saying Republicans were very much in favor of this bill, which was presented somewhat last minute with more than 90 pages. Democrats were complaining about not even having enough time to read the bill before signing off on it, so they voted against it. But why would Republicans want to ram through a bill that removes oversight on election technology and prevents citizens, some, from voting?
Yeah, very, very good question. And so this is why you, the people watching this, it's so important. Our team went and visited with over 30 offices in Tallahassee. That's just our team. That doesn't count all the other teams that went. And when we spoke with the aides or the legislators there, most of them did not know the details of this bill. What ends up happening is people just listen to the talking points. So they see that the bill has training. That's good. They see that the bill has penalties for criminals. That's good. They see that the bill has some collaboration. That's good. And that's where they stop. Our team went through the nitty gritty and went into the details. And because it's 98 pages, and because our legislators who are working hard for us are overworked and often understaffed, our team was able to identify these egregious issues, and then we presented it to the legislation. So why are Republicans, why do you see some talking points in favor of this bill? It's this blue section here. Why are we taking an adverse position towards this bill? Because of the red section here. And so this is where you, the people, so in your state, if you go through the training and you do what we did, you would be able to work with your legislators and say, hey, hold on a second. Did you know that this sentence is here? And when we've
Wow.
done that, we have noticed the legislator and the aide, they start taking notes. Why? Because they hadn't gone through the bill in that detail.
Oh
Our
my gosh.
volunteers
So you train citizens to kind of help proofread these bills before legislators pass them.
is, and yes, and this is essential. I can't overemphasize this. And if you're surprised at this, I was too.
Right.
And I remember, we're volunteers. We're not attorneys. We're not legislators. We're not special interest groups. We're not any of those things.
Wow.
We're just people who have common sense. Who either we run organizations, we run businesses. We have to understand procedures. We have to understand policies in our own world. And so the volunteers have spent hours, some of them all night, going through the bill, focusing, collaborating, chatting with others to figure out what does this bill say or didn't say. And you, my friends, have got to do the same thing in
Yeah,
your
for
state.
viewers who are not aware of your organization, Defend Florida was started in the months after the 2020 election, after there was a lot of red flags in that one. You guys cared about making sure each vote counted, and that you've expanded to defend the union. So you are saying it appears that this bill was advertised to Florida Republicans in a way that may have been deceptive. So they signed off on it not knowing that it removes oversight on election technology.
So the way this works is there's deception, and then there's omission, and there are people that are overworked and understaffed. So you put and you got citizens that are not paying attention. So you put all those things together, what ends up happening is the groups like the Florida Supervisor of Election. This is a trade union that has powerful lobbyists that are responsible for a lot of the content in this bill that we are taking issue with. That special interest group bent the ear of our legislators, told them the talking points that are in blue, did not dwell on the talking points that are in red, and the legislators just went along. Now,
Wait, what
why
group is this again?
the Florida Supervisor of Elections? This is a trade organization in the state of Florida that our election officials belong to. Our election officials are hardworking, principle-centered people, But this group has a board within itself, and this board of a few hire lobbyists, and this board of a few within this organization pressure legislation to put language in here that's in the red section.
Wow.
And
So
this is
you think
happening
it
in
was the
every
board?
state. This is happening in every state. So if you're, if you're watching this, it's kind of like if you're a parent and you're parenting your child has so many different nuances to their personality. Yes, it's not just a one size fits all. It's a nuance. There's so many aspects to your child. Consider that election integrity is the same way. There's so many nuances. So if people get focused on the machines and that's all they focus on, you're potentially missing the boat. If people focus on one aspect and that's all you focus on, you're potentially missing the boat. You got to look at all these different factors. And when you do that, you will find that in your state, your legislators may actually be good men and women, but there are people, lobbyists, that are bending their ear. You, my friends, have got to get up to speed on how you can defend your own state by illustrating to your legislators what these things are. You got to get trained. You got to get trained. You got to get trained. So it's remarkable, Ivory, when you unpeel this how a lot of this works. Now, one other thing, since you brought that up, and I'm glad you did, we actually were able to, because we work professionally, we have teams that write things down, provide documentation in easy to understand format. We were able to get some legislators to file 10 changes that we wanted. Now, when I say they filed it, meaning they write them down, they submit them into the process. There's a very nice protocol required whenever a bill is going through the approval process. So we asked them, we showed them thing, they wrote that down, they filed it, and then get this, this will blow you away, or it should, it did for me anyway. After they filed the amendments, those legislators were asked by someone high up in the food chain, hey, I want you to withdraw those amendments. I don't want your amendments discussed. I don't want your amendments argued. I don't want your amendments voted on. I need you to withdraw those amendments. This is egregious behavior. Now, if you're living in a red state, like allegedly we are, I want you to consider something. Yeah, I want you to consider something. When we look at the blue states, California, New York, how did they get that way? We look at them now and we see how their governor is such a bully. He makes laws about COVID, and then he breaks his own laws himself. You see what they're doing in New York. We got all these people leaving, fleeing these states, coming to states like us. How did those states get that way? It didn't happen overnight. So I want to just share with you something about California here. I'm going to share my screen again, and I want you to look at this. This is what happened in California, December of 2018. When this happened, the people in California, they weren't able to get their voice heard, and this became law. Not enough people are watching. And so in December 4, 2018, they passed this law on ballot harvesting. This is the bill. You can look it up, AB 1921. They didn't stop it then, and that started a trajectory. And look at where they are now, in shambles, politically, economically. So going back to Florida and your state, you need to stay on this, because when you see things like this, you need to be clear on what is happening. For example, here's another example. This is Florida versus Texas. We are told that Florida is a gold standard. That's actually not the case anymore. Texas is going way past us. If you look at this screen here, you can see the strong election integrity law being passed by our colleagues in Texas. Every highlight is a bill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Look at this. Texas is getting it done. Meanwhile, Florida, that was a gold standard, is now in this quagmire here. So I know time's running so fast. Do
you have a copy of the part of this bill that's most concerning, or could you tell me which part of it is so I could bring it up for my viewers?
Absolutely. In fact, that's good. So to do that, Ivory, if you direct your viewers to defendflorida.org, and then just have them click on this link here. When they click on this link here, they will have this document here that lists the areas that are more concerned. And by the way, thank you for that idea. That is so important, because we need to make sure that our people are informed. And so here it's just still loading. You'll see a screenshot here. You'll see the line numbers. You'll see the reason why we're taking to. You'll see the suggestions we made to address these issues. So please take a look at this. You can find it again on defendflorida.org. And when you go to defendflorida.org, just click on that black link that's in the middle of the top of the page. and you will see it right there. Click this for this list of our
List
concerns.
of concerns.
And
Okay.
yeah, and you should, in your state, if you don't mind me being so audacious, you, my friends watching this, you should be doing this in your state. You got to be doing, because this is either happening or will be happening in your location. And at the bottom of this page, you can see the training that I mentioned earlier. So I want to give your viewers a little bit more context here. This is something that one of our grandmoms actually was discussing. And look, this is what people in Florida are beginning to figure out. Here's what they're beginning to figure out. They're connecting the dots. For a while, I've been thinking, why is Biden just allowing all these people come across the border? No other country does that. We seem to be the only country with that just allows people to walk in. Why is he doing that? I'm trying to figure it out, because it's so now the dots seem to be connecting. Watch this. Open borders, that's president. That puts more non-US citizens in the country. Because of the election law gap in your states, a lot of those non-citizens are now on the voter rolls. They can now cast a vote, and now it doesn't matter what you vote. You could vote for Democrat, you could vote Republican, you could vote independent. It doesn't matter, because you have a non-US citizen in this country casting a vote that's canceling your vote. This is the math, my friends. This is what's happening right now. So please take action. I mentioned earlier that there was some language that got struck out. You can look at this here when you look at the document. I've got a screenshot here of how it was struck out. And also, I just want to give you a graphic. I told you earlier that we have election technology in our state. That's good. And we have that here. We implemented it. In our laws, on October 23rd this year, we were supposed to review that. The legislature was supposed to review that. However, this bill that we just did, it removed that. Why would someone do that?
Wow.
Why on earth would someone do that? They just removed the review. And so now we got a black box there. So this is just examples of the different aspects of things that are not working in our state. And the important thing is, if you're not in Florida, please pay attention to what's going on in your location, because this is hypercritical.
Wow. Do you have any idea who these people are that drop big bills last minute? I mean, how does this process even happen? And how does the legislature allow this recklessness to proceed? Who's writing the bill, and who's doing the timing of dropping it on their desk without time for them to read it?
Yeah. So in our state, volunteers were working with our legislators for months. And then beginning of April, a 98-page bill gets dropped. So everyone's scrambling. And why that's important? Because our legislation session is ending very, very soon. In fact, it may already have ended on May 7th, but it's dropped at very much at the last minute. Now, how does this happen? Who does it? So in your state, consider that not all legislators are equal. So in your state, like ours, you have a hierarchy of power. And so the most powerful people in your state, like ours, will be the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. You also have the governor. So in our state, we have a governor who wishes to have the laws changed so that he can run for president, which again, we're fine with. We're A-okay with. If he had just put that in the bill, people that we're working with, a lot of us, not all, but a lot of us would have supported it. Why not? But when that happens, that becomes what's called a must-pass bill, because everyone understands that, all right, we need to get this change made so that our governor, if he wants to, can run for president. So under those conditions, this is where the bad actors show up. So they see there's a bill here that has to pass, and so they take their wish list and they dump it on this bill. And those toxic things that I mentioned earlier, that's part of their wish list. And so there are many reasons for doing that. We can talk about that in just a minute. But you got to understand, this is how the sausage is made. This is how the game is played. And so what you and I need to do is we need to form teams, because every one of us have got a job. We're all working. We're doing different things. Form a team, which is exactly what we did. We created a thread on Signal, Telegram. But we use Signal. And then we said, all right, guys, Here's a problem. We need us to work the problem. Number one, read the bill. So here's a document. Whatever issues you find, write them in this document. Number two, whatever issues you find, come up with a solution. So now we got problem, and we got a solution. Number three, we need a team to go and meet with our legislators professionally, respectfully, confidently, and assertively, and share, here's a problem, here's a concern. This is how you mitigate how these things happen. So we're talking right now about election integrity, Senate Bill 7050 in Florida. But if you think not too far back, Obamacare happened exactly the same way. So a huge bill comes. You heard legislators even say, we've got to pass this bill just so we can read it, implying that they hadn't even read it when they passed the bill. So this is how government can work when citizens are not involved. But when I say citizens involved, I mean very specifically, you got to organize in that way. If you don't have the time to do it, it's okay. Most of the people on our team all have day jobs, but because we have a team and we're organized, we're able to mount the issue that we have. And now we're on Ivory's show. We're talking with you because this has now become a big, big deal. Importantly, Ivory, legislators, now that the thing has been passed, legislators are now beginning to find out what kind of damage they just passed into law. And some of them are now working to fix that. So
I was going to ask, is there anything they can do now? Because did the governor already sign off on it as well?
Very good question. So in our state of Florida, the governor does not need to sign it for it to become law. The way it works is after our House and our Senate pass the bill, which they have done, it's then presented to the governor. And once it's presented to the governor, if the governor doesn't do anything with it, it automatically becomes law. If the governor wants, he can veto the bill. That's his choice. If the governor wants, he can call a special session where he could call the legislators back and say, hey, guys, I know it's traveling and this bill, for whatever reason, has got egregious language. I've heard from the people in Florida, this is not something they're happy with at all. We need to have a special session so we can fix this. That's another remedy that the governor can use if he so chooses. So it's not law yet, but it doesn't require the governor to sign it in order to become law. It'll just become law if he doesn't do anything. And the other thing he can do is he could veto it. He could call a special session. So there are still options. So if you're in Florida, especially, text DEFEND to 91776, and we will give you information on how you can contact the governor, phone numbers, email addresses. If you're outside the state of Florida, we'll give you training on how you can do this in your state. But Ivory, this is how things slip through. And then we find ourselves complaining and whining because of something that happened, and it's too late.
Wow. Yeah, I think I read it goes into effect July 1st.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think we need more eyeballs on legislation passing in all states.
And it's possible. This is not difficult to do. Remember, I just go back to moms, because in my view and in my world, moms are phenomenal. In fact, most of the work done to preserve our country is being done by moms. But why I brought moms up is moms have this ability to organize. They figure out how to get their kids to all the different activities, how to do parties and events. They're great at it. Why I brought that up is that's the same mindset you need to take on in your state on this topic, meaning you got to get together with other people, you got to form teams, you got to assign tasks, and work just like any other project that you are doing. Now, if you were to do this, you can prevail. Last year, we had a situation where we needed election legislation, and everyone in Tallahassee said it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, not going to happen. But because we worked in the way I just described, we were able to compel and persuade our leaders to pass what was the most transparent, fair, accountable election integrity in Florida history, Senate Bill 524. So this needs to happen again now, and it can and will happen. A couple of things that I just want to mention for your consideration. So as our midterms approach, right? So if our midterms are now about 300 days away, depending on the state that you're living. If you do not get involved in your election process, We just talked a lot about on this call how the sausage is made. If you don't get involved now, meaning make sure that your legislator knows who you are, your sheriff knows who you are, and make sure they know you as an intelligent, thoughtful, law-abiding, confident, respectful person. If you don't do that, likely our 2024 primaries that are coming up in less than 300 days are going to be a debacle, just like they were in 2022.
Wow.
So we need you guys to take action now, because I just showed you how bad things are happening so quickly in our state. If you have to be the one that meets with your legislators and takes a look, hey, have we passed anything in our state like this? And if you don't know how, again, go to defendflorida.org. There's training. You saw. If you missed that on the show, rewind to the beginning of the show, and you'll see where I showed you that. But
Defendflorida.org. All right.
Defendflorida.org, exactly. Defendflorida.org. Go to defendflorida.org or text the word defend to 91776. We'll give you the links. But you need to please see what legislation you have that's either being passed or has passed. You need to work with the legislators in your area. We'll show you how. You need to work with your election officials in your county. We'll show you how. You need to work with your sheriff. We'll show you how. Not that we have the answer to any of this, by far, not at all. We do not have the answer to all these things, but we have pieces of it that you can adopt so you can be more effective in your location. And if you do that, especially in the swing states, maybe we've got a shot. We've got a shot. But it's very serious, Ivory.
Sounds like it's very serious. Well, thank you for shedding light on this. And we'll definitely have to stay tuned to whether Florida legislators decide to take action. I'm sure they could at least create a new bill that nixes the bad parts.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. Many teams are already working on that. I'd like to offer your viewers another perspective. Okay, so this is hard. Okay, I know what I'm about to say. Some of you are gonna like, oh man, I don't want to hear that, Raj. Stop it. I'm gonna mute you right now. I know you're gonna say that, but I'm gonna say it anyway. So listen, what happens in Florida is not actually a function of what our legislators do or don't do. It's not. What happens in Florida is going to be a function of what the Floridians do. This is really, really key. Too long, you and I, the people watching this and myself, have been looking for our leaders to do the right thing, not in fact realizing that it's actually, are we going to persuade, compel, motivate, apply political pressure to them so that the right thing gets done? And that is where we're at. This is why you, my friends, actually have the key. That's good. You can affect change. That's good. The bad thing is, if you don't, we're all toast. So,
I mean, this bill kind of, perhaps to me, it sheds some light on how people do mischievous things to elections. The fact that someone wants to get rid of oversight on machines, well, it must be through manipulation of machines that someone is planning to do something to the Florida election. What brand of machines do you guys use there?
So that part of the legislation that I referred to, by the way, we use machines from a company called ESNS, a software from a company called ESNS. We use machines from a company called Dominion. But the section that I had showed you earlier is actually about a different part of election technology. There's so many different aspects to election technology. You just mentioned two of them. There are many others as well. That part of the legislation that I showed you referred to a system called ERIC. And ERIC is a way that people share information between states. We have gotten out of ERIC, and so it's puzzling why the language that requires a legislation to see what ERIC did while we're using it has been struck out. But to your point, there are different pieces of election integrity, election machinery in every state. And look, it's we were talking earlier. I'm going to talk to the parents again. If you ever have a child misbehave, you as a parent take action, right? You don't like sit back and say, well, the child's going to get it right. No, you take action. You hold your child accountable. You work with your child. You show your child, hey, this is wrong, this is right. And then you motivate the child. Now, our legislators are not children. Our legislators are adults. They're professionals. and everybody, whether it be legislators or children, need to be held accountable. And we are not doing that. And so now we have the situation we're in. So you can do this. You can make a difference, but you got to do it in an organized, efficient way. And Ivory, so it's kind of, it's a knife that cuts two ways. On one hand, we're accountable. It's all in our. It's all up to us. No one else is going to get it done for us. On the other hand, hey, we can make it happen. We can make a change. Do what the folks in Florida did. Organize and make your voice heard.
Well, thank you so much for shedding light on this. My viewers can go to defendflorida.org, and the national site is what?
defendourunion.org, defendourunion.org. And the quickest way is just text the word defend up there. And when you text the word defend, we'll actually send you links to all of the things that Ivory and I talked about, including the training, and also ways that you can take action in your state. So that's a super easy way to do it. Otherwise, go to defendflorida.org if you're in Florida, or go to defendourunion.org if you're outside the state of Florida. And the last thing is, if you haven't done so yet, as soon as this show's over, share Ivory's channel to 3 people. That's action. That's action. If you haven't done that, shame on you. There's such good content on Ivory's program. You need to be taking action on making sure other people are aware of it. So do the right thing and share the link to Ivory's channel to 3 different. She didn't ask me to say that, but I always say that because people like Ivory are the ones that have the courage, the skill, the articulation to make sure that you and I, my friends, are apprised on what's actually happening.
Well, I appreciate the shout out so much, Raj. Appreciate what you're doing. Keep in touch. Let me know how things go in this situation.
I will. Thank you, Ivory. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Talk to you later.